So, we come to the last of the 6 qualities. No, do we? No, this is, it is the last one. Yeah, there we are. Okay. So, furthermore, a mendicant lives according to the view shared with their spiritual companions, both in public and in private. That view is noble and emancipating. Emancipating just means liberating, really. And leads one who practices it to the complete ending of suffering. This warm-hearted quality makes for fondness and respect, conducing to inclusion, harmony, and unity without quarreling. So this is the highest of these 6 qualities, is the right view. Because when you have the right view, it means you have exactly the same outlook, you move in exactly the same direction, and so it's very easy to live in harmony when you have that right view. So these are really the stream enters. And this is noble and emancipating in the sense that it takes you out of samsaric existence. It leads one who practices it to the complete ending of suffering. So this is kind of the highest ideal. And the reason is because all of these other qualities that we're talking about follows from this right view. When you have the right view, all these other ones can be expected in that person. So this is the ideal thing. And of course, it is not as if you either have right view or you don't. There are degrees of right view, and so you should lean in the right direction, have as much of that right view as you can have. That's kind of the idea. And one of the reasons why we have these kind of workshops is to establish more of that right view. So you have a clear outlook what the Dhamma really is. Because the Dhamma is profound. It takes time for these things to sink in. And so you're kind of gradually steering your right view to become more and more right, less and less wrong. And as it sinks in, that's exactly what is happening. And then all of the other qualities, they kind of follow along with that right view. The power of right view is that it steers the whole Noble Eightfold Path according to it. So that is the right view. And I think I will leave it at that. So then look at the very last part here. These 6 warm-hearted qualities make for fondness and respect, conducive to inclusion, harmony, and unity without quarreling. Of these 6 warm-hearted qualities, the chief is the view that is noble and emancipating, and leads one who practices it to the complete ending of suffering. It holds and binds everything together. This is kind of the power of that view. It is like a bungalow. A roof peak is the chief point, which holds and binds everything together. In the same way, of these 6 warm-hearted qualities, the chief is the view that is noble and emancipating, and leads one who practices it to the complete ending of suffering. It holds and binds everything together. So this is the idea of the right view. Why? How does this work? Why is this view so important? And the reason why it is so important is because it fully understands why immorality is so dangerous. There is a simile of the hot coal, and the simile is just like a baby or a child by accident picks up a hot coal. If it does it by accident, it kind of lets go straight away. In the same way, the Aryans, they will understand that picking up doing something immoral is like picking up a hot coal, and straight away they let go. And what that means in practice is that you do very few immoral things, but if you do something immoral, then you confess it straight away. This is one of the qualities of the noble ones. So we should expect someone who is a noble one to be very moral, very kind, full of metta, full of compassion. That is what we should expect. So it becomes one of the ways of investigating and evaluating whether someone really has reached those qualities and whether they are worthy of being called a noble one. The simile of the cow and the calf that we mentioned before. Don't have to mention it again. That always has one eye on the calf. You always have one eye on the spiritual practice, regardless of what you're doing. So this is the kind of the idea here. So before I move on, just one of the dangers sometimes when you live with someone who is very kind or whatever, sometimes it's possible to have more ill will towards a person like that. Yeah, and the reason is because, and this is kind of where we have to be careful. The reason is because someone who is very kind, you're not afraid of them, and because you're not afraid of them, you are your natural self, and your natural self often has maybe some defilements in it, right? And those defilements come out more easily when you're off your guard and you're no longer careful. If you are with someone you are scared of, you are on your guard. You don't allow those defilements come out because you're slightly scared. So be very careful. Yeah, when you're around someone like Ajahn Brahm, he seems like so nice and cuddly. Don't allow your defilements to come out because you feel at ease around him. Maybe for you it's not a problem because you still have a bit of distance to Ajahn Brahm, but let's say for the monks, we are around him all the time. And sometimes you're just a little bit too relaxed, and then things come out that aren't perfect, that are not kind of living up to the highest standard. The same thing may be the case when you're around the Buddha. The Buddha is so kind, you're always really relaxed around the Buddha, and so then your defilements can easily come out. So you have to be very careful with these things. So that's kind of one way of thinking about it. Be very careful around these noble ones. You can make very bad karma around noble people if you treat them badly, right? And if you then are too at ease, actually it leads to something dangerous. But there's also the flip side of that. The flip side is sometimes people may say something to me that is a bit too harsh. Yeah, it doesn't happen very often, but sometimes it may happen. And then the way I think about that is that wow, that means that I have made them feel at ease. Yeah, because if I am kind and they are at ease, then they kind of would speak to me more freely. It means that defilements will come out more easily. So if someone speaks to me harshly or unkindly, it makes that I have done something right. I have made them feel at ease. And now they are so at ease that the defilements just come out of them. And so I think I'm happy about that. Yeah, I'm really happy because it means that I have done something right. And that's a beautiful way of thinking about things, because that means that you look at kind of the expression of someone's defilements, especially if it is only sometimes, you see it as a positive thing. Somehow you have made a contribution to them. They can feel relaxed and at ease about things, and that's kind of a positive thing. So if you get angry with me, maybe I'll get happy. I don't know. No, please don't get too angry with me because that wouldn't be so nice. But you know what I mean, It can be a little bit like that. So it's so fascinating because the life is all about picking the right kind of perceptions, seeing things in the right way, and everything can be turned into a positive perception. And when you see it in a positive way, then it will always lead to growth for you. Knowing which perceptions lead to growth and which leads to declining, which perceptions lead to stability. I've taught this sutta here before. I don't know if you remember the sutta. It's a sutta about your perceptions, and this is a sutta where someone goes to Venerable Sariputta. I think in one place they go to the Buddha as well, and they say, well, how come some beings attain parinibbana, become extinguished, other peoples do not attain parinibbana? That's a good question, isn't it? Why do some people get to Nibbana and some not? And then Venerable Sariputta and elsewhere the Buddha give this really kind of profound answer that is actually quite hard to really grasp fully, and you have to think about it a bit to really understand what is going on. And Venerable Sariputta says, those beings who understand which perceptions lead to decline, which perceptions lead to standing steady, which perceptions lead to what is the word again? Visesa, to distinction. In other words, to improvement or increase, including distinction, and which perceptions lead to penetration to the truth. They're seeing the truth fully. If you understand those four perceptions, how they work, then you achieve nibbana. If you don't understand which perceptions lead to those things, you don't attain Nibbana. And so if we understand, because perceptions are like a very underlying quality that is almost immediately there. We perceive things very fast. If you know the kind of the perceptual sequence, you talk about dependent origination, we talk about things like the Madhupindika Sutta, the Honeyball Sutta. It talks about how our senses operate. Yeah, the senses operate by the eye, the object of the eye, consciousness coming together, three coming together. Is contact. Contact means you are experiencing the world. When you experience the world, there is feeling and there is perception. They arise straight away. When there is feeling, there is perception. And so it's immediate. Yeah, when we see the world or hear the world or experience the world, there's always a perception there. And so we want to train our perceptions, because when we train them, that immediate experience is a positive, useful experience rather than a negative one. So training our perceptions is a kind of fundamental idea. And so to be able to train them, we have to know which ones we should train, which ones we should avoid, which one we should kind of develop, right, of these perceptions. And so this is the trick. And so you will start to understand those perceptions that then lead to defilements. They are the ones you should avoid. Those perceptions that lead to purity of mind, that lead to metta, compassion, and these kind of things, these are the ones you should develop. These are the ones that matter. Yeah? And this is why I was saying before, this kind of simple idea of being happy when someone treats you harshly is a positive thing. Or at least I'm making them feel at ease. Yeah, they are relaxed with me. Okay, good. Yeah, so it's okay. It doesn't matter if they treat me. This is just the defilement coming out. They have other good qualities as well. Yeah? And then you kind of are turning things around completely, upside down. And then you can have kindness and compassion to people instead. So understanding your perceptions, what they lead to, how they shape your entire life is important. There is a very famous teaching called the teaching on the vipalasas. The word vipalasa means like a distortion or a perversion, if you like, of the mind. Basically means you're seeing things upside down, you're seeing things in the wrong way. Yeah, and these vipalasas in the sutras are threefold vipalasas. Vipalasa of perception, vipalasa of mind, chitta or thought, and vipalasa of view. Yes, you have distortions in perception, thoughts and views. And the most basic of those is the distortion of perception, where you are viewing things in a way that is kind of very unhelpful and upside down. If you have a distortion in perception, that will lead to a distortion of mind or distortion of thought, because the way you perceive will be the way you think. If you perceive someone as your enemy, you will think about them as your enemy. And the way you perceive and think, that will become your views. You think of them and perceive them as your enemy, that becomes your view, that they are your enemy. And that view will then in turn inform your perceptions. And because you have the view that they are your enemy, you will perceive them as your enemy. And round it goes like that. All of these things reinforcing each other. So it looks like you are trapped, right? Your view becomes the perception becomes the thought becomes the view becomes the perception, which becomes the thought, the view, round and round. No escape. You are like the hamster on the wheel, yeah, going round and round and round, trapped. So what is the answer? And the answer is that you have to understand that your view is wrong. The Buddha comes along and says your view is problematic, and you think, yeah, maybe you have a point. And then you start to develop an alternative way of looking at things. You start to think about things in a new way. And that changes your perception. Yeah, because you think about things in a way, you perceive things differently. And then when you contact the world and perception arises, you actually have a different experience of the world at that time. You don't experience those people as your enemies anymore. You experience just as people. People who are suffering. Actually, they're not my enemies, they may not be my friends either, but they're just people in the world. I don't have to make enemies out of them. They may be my enemy, maybe they think badly about me, but I will not think badly about them. I don't want to have any enemies in the world. I don't know what after After 9 days with me, maybe you think about me as your enemy. I don't know. You had enough of this monk talking all the time. He talks too much. And maybe it's good I only come once a year, right? It might be too much if you saw me. But, I will try not to think of you as an enemy, regardless of what you think about me. Yeah, I don't really care what you think about me. I mean, it's nice if you are kind to me. Of course, that's nice. But actually, at the end of the day, I'm not going to care too much. And in a large group like this, there will be some of you who will have kind of, kind thoughts to me. Maybe many of you will have that. But maybe there's a few of you who think, yeah, I don't know about that. Yeah, that is kind of doubtful, uncertain. And that's okay. You are free to think that. And if you weren't free to think that, it would be terrible, because then we have to imprison you to think in a certain way. That is no freedom. That doesn't lead to growth. That leads to just feeling trapped in a way. And so you are always allowed to think exactly what you want. And I will still do my very best to treat you, perceive you in a positive way, because that's how I try to perceive everyone in the world. And that's how someone like Ajahn Brahm treats people. It's kind of amazing. This is one of those kind of fabulous things about someone like Ajahn Brahm. He doesn't ever really say anything bad about anyone. It just never happens. And when I try, sometimes you have to discuss what should we do next. This person, you remember some bad actions, so maybe we shouldn't put this person in that position because they might do the wrong thing. There's always politics everywhere. And so life is politics, right? And so I say to Ajahn Brahm, we better remember that person last time they were in that position, they kind of did something dodgy, so maybe we better not put them there. Ajahn Brahm says, I can't remember that. Anything bad about anybody, he just can't remember it. He has kind of let it go a long time ago. He's like the famous, the famous garbage bin without bottom. Yeah, this is kind of the famous Ajahn Chah thing. It just goes straight through him. He doesn't remember it. He only collects the good things in people. So if you ask him, he can only see the good things. And that's one of the things I like about Ajahn Brahm, because he always sees the good things in me, right? He can never remember anything bad I have done. So he thinks I'm the greatest person, because he can't remember anything bad about me. That's kind of very handy. I'm very glad because, over 30 years, there's always been some bad things. And he doesn't remember any of that. And that kind of is a beautiful quality. It means that in Ajahn Brahm's mind, the world is very beautiful and everything is very nice and everything is great. So he only takes with him all the positive experiences. So try to do that as well. Remember the good things in other people. There's a lot of good things to be seen. In a Buddhist community, people have kindness. There's so much goodness to be seen. Remember that. Don't pick up all the dung, and fill up your mind with dung. It's not nice to have dung in your mind. Bring the gold into your mind so your mind shines. Dung doesn't make your mind shine. And so bring that gold into your mind. And when you have the gold in the mind, then you are developing the mind in the right way. You become more like Ajahn Brahm, a shining example for the Buddhist world. So develop your perceptions in the right way. And then as you do that, these things start to come together. You start to understand how to move towards awakening in the right way. And some of the most important of those perceptions is precisely these things, the metta perception. Seeing the goodness in the people around you, moving in that direction is such an important part of this. So see what you can do. Take your example, learn from the people who are more advanced on the path than yourself. Look at them, observe them, see what they do, see how they think. Sometimes we dismiss things when people say things like, always see the good qualities. We think, you got to be realistic about things. You can't always see the good qualities. We cannot dismiss that because we think we are used to the worldly way of thinking. You have to be realistic. But if you are going to stick to the worldly way of thinking, you won't make so much progress because the world is always the opposite of the Dhamma. The Dhamma is precisely going in a different direction. It is precisely collecting the gold when the rest of the world collects the dung. That's what it is about. So you have to go against the stream. This is what it means. And when you go against the stream, that is when you will get some good results. This is one of the reasons why the Kalyanamitta is so important. Because when you come here and you are with your Kalyanamitas, you are helped into the stream of the Dhamma. You get moved by the force of all of these good friends moving in the right direction. You fall into that stream and you also get carried along. That's the point of the Kalyanamitta. Otherwise, you're going to be trapped by the world. The world will lead you in the opposite direction. The world will drive you in one way, and the Dhamma will drive you in the opposite way. So this is why Kalyanamitta is so important, because it allows you to go against the stream, against the ordinary conditioning of the world. You will notice when you leave this retreat and you go back to your ordinary life, how you get trapped again by the perceptions of the people around you. You will forget some of these beautiful teachings of the Buddha, and the world will start to take over your mind. And you will think, yeah, I got to do this, I got to do that. And everyone else around you has that sense of, worldly desires, worldly greed, worldly ambition, all of these things. And you will be drawn into that. It cannot be otherwise. It has to be like that, yeah? The only people in the world who don't get drawn into these things, the only people in the world who stand their ground are the Aryas, the noble ones. They are the only ones. That's why they are so important. It is very strange. We talk about there is nothing permanent in the world. We say that there is no one who stands like a pillar. It is the same ever and ever after. This idea of permanence, which is found in the Brahmanical tradition, that there is a self, there is a Brahman in the world that is always there. We say that there is no such thing here. And there is no such thing here. But the closest we get in the Dhamma are the Aryas. They are firm because they have seen the truth, they know the truth. In them, they are firm in morality. So they are firm, but they only last for a while, because then they become enlightened and they disappear. You won't be able to see them again. But at the very least, they last for a while. And while they are there, they have that firmness. And so this is why it is so important to come back to these teachings. Come back to the Aryas. Come back to the Buddha. This thing which is certain, which is undeviating, which is always true. Not allow the world to take over your mind, because the power of the world is that always it will drag you away from the Dhamma in the wrong direction. It is so easy for that to happen. One of the great things about being around someone like Ajahn Brahm in my life is that there is that feeling of that power there, the certainty, the pillar. It's like I know that when I go to Ajahn Brahm, I can just relax and be at ease and kind of, have a good time, so to speak. And he will tell you a joke, and he will but he is relaxed, and he will never say anything bad to you. And if it says anything, it's always something nice. It's kind of wonderful. And having that sense of pillar in the monastic community is just it's really, really powerful. And you can see why that is the engine that makes the whole Buddhist path possible. It is the engine that draws everyone along in the slipstream. You just follow along. You just kind of hang in there. And when you hang in there, the Dhamma comes into you by osmosis. You just stay there, and the Dhamma just penetrates through you, and it gets into you somehow. And it's just marvelous how that works. Very often we think that the Dhamma is about how hard we practice and we do the right thing or whatever. But sometimes the Dhamma is about being as passive as possible and just allowing the Dhamma to come into you. Very often that is a more powerful way than all the doing and all the activity that we do. So, I don't know where I started with all this, but anyway. I was just kind of summarizing the sutta, the Kosambiyasutta. What was that? Right view, Vipalasas and right view, So, so it all kind of comes back to this and the power of these things, why right view is so important and how it holds it all together, and then how the metta and everything kind of emerges out of that. That's kind of what this really is about. Let's, I don't really want to go any further right now. Let's take another little break and do some more if you have any more questions. Otherwise, we will carry on. So let's have another short break. Okay.
Bhante, I want to ask about perception.
Mm.
Bhante mentioned about changing perception.
Yeah.
How do we go about doing that? Is that during meditation or like because our perception is strongly ingrained in us even from a long time.
Yeah.
So it's not easy to break it.
Yeah. So you do that during meditation, but you also do it during everyday life. You do it all the time, basically. So it's just about basically what you do is you take some of the ideas of the Buddha and then you apply it in your life in general. So, for example, one of the things that we talk about all the time, and which is one of the most important things, is how you see people in the world. So we tend to see people in a certain way. There are certain people, for example, if you see someone treating you badly, how do you perceive that person who treats you badly? And very often you will see them as your enemy, you will see them as someone who is bad, someone who is kind of whatever. But actually you want to change that perception instead to see them as someone who is trapped in their conditioning, or someone who is suffering. So the moment you see them as actually this is not the person who is treating you badly, that's just a coincidence that you happen to be there or whatever, but actually it's a person who is trapped in a certain way of doing things. That's why they're behaving badly and treating you badly, because of that being trapped in that particular conditioning. And so this is what you do all the way through the day. When someone treats you badly, you remind yourself, wait a minute, why am I thinking about them like this? I'm making this into something personal. Actually got nothing to do with me. It has to do with the conditioning of the other person. They are trapped by their conditioning. Another way of doing that is to recognize that most people, when they do bad things, they do it because they are suffering. So you look at the other person, you think they're treating you badly. Actually, the reason is because something is going wrong in their life. They are suffering on some level. Maybe they are treated badly by someone else in return. And now it's kind of coming out of their mouth or coming out in their conduct. This is what I mean by changing perception. You're seeing people in a new way. You're using the idea of right view to change your perception. The right view is that there is no inherent person in that other person. If there was an inherent person there, a real person inside, like a permanent entity that could decide one way or the other, and today I decide to be nasty towards this person, well then maybe you could blame them because it was their choice. But the Buddhist point of view of non-self is that it is not their choice. They haven't really chosen that independently. They have been conditioned to treat you badly. This is their background. They're all of these factors coming together. And then you change your perception like that. This is one example. This is a very important example, maybe one of the most critical ones, because if you can deal with that perception fully, you will almost never get upset with anyone anymore. I mean, seriously, because everyone is just a conditioned blob moving around the world. So when you see everyone as a conditioned blob, how can you get angry with a conditioned blob? You can't. And so you change your entire way of doing things. Another very important perception is the perception of impermanence, anicca sanya. And the Buddha talks about anicca sanya all the time. So this is, for example, this is the perception of death. Marana sanya is a kind of impermanence. So you have the perception of death. You know that you could die. You don't know when you're going to die. Could die at any time. That means that now you have the opportunity to do what is right. Can't really wait. Now is the right time. Why am I getting upset? Why do I have so many desires about things? If I could die soon, that those desires don't make any sense anymore. So that is one kind of anicca sanya, is the perception of death. Another one is all things dear and agreeable to me must become otherwise and separated from me. It's a very tough kind of perception, but when you remind yourself of that, you don't take refuge in impermanent things. This is the problem. We take refuge in these things. By taking refuge in these things, I mean we attach to them, we crave for them, we hold on to them. That's like taking refuge in them, because we are assuming they will be there, available for us. That's why we are attached. If you understand that these things will not or may not be available to you, then why would you attach? You wouldn't, because you're just making up suffering for yourself. And so you don't take refuge in those things. Instead, you take refuge in the Dhamma, in generosity, in kindness, in meditation practice, in inner qualities. Because those inner qualities is something that you can control to some extent, because that's up to you whether you develop those inequalities or not. If you are a good meditator, you can always withdraw within and experience the peace and the joy inside. So you use the anicca sanya to let go a little bit of the world around you, to let go because you understand that world is fundamentally problematic. You remember this again and again, and as you remember this, that starts to sink in, and you start to know what is going on. I know you want to ask another question, right? But let me finish first of all. We're not finished yet, you see. This could be a long talk, because anicca sanya, developing perception, is a very, very broad field. The suttas talk about a large number of perceptions that we can develop, and all of these perceptions are part of this. Another one, just very briefly, because I know you want to ask, that's okay. It's good that you ask, because then we can have the conversation going. Another one is the sabba loka anabhirata sanya, which is the perception of non-delighting in the whole world. It's like, you start to understand how the whole world is problematic. From the kind of the highest point of seeing the wars going on in the world, and seeing the climate change, and seeing everything being out of control, seeing this asteroids hitting the planet and blowing everything up, or I don't know what. All of these things are uncertain. Everything is kind of unreliable. And when the whole world is unreliable, again, you reduce your attachment and your craving for these things. This is the perception of impermanence. It's a very, very broad perception that can be applied across your life. Anyway, I'm gonna stop there and allow you to ask a follow-up question. So please do so.
Actually, I want to ask, how is it related to the Girimananda?
It is very closely related to Girimananda, because Girimananda Sutta is about developing perception largely, 10 different perceptions. Anguttara Nikaya 1060, Girimananda Sutta. The ginger is very spicy. So the Girimananda Sutta is precisely that. In the Girimananda Sutta you have the perception of impermanence, the perception of non-self, the perception of danger, the perception of fading away, the perception of cessation, ending. You have the anapanasati at the very end. It's all in the Girimananda Sutta. And so that is a very good example of the development of perception. So if you read that sutta and you understand the content, you can develop all of those perceptions, then great. That's exactly what it is, what I'm talking about. That's, by the way, that's a paritta. It's used as a paritta chant, the protection chant, the Girimananda Sutta. It begins with the monk Girimananda being sick, and then Ananda goes to the Buddha and says, monk Girimananda is sick, please, what shall we do? And the Buddha says, chant or recite these 10 perceptions to him, and then he will be okay, or something to that effect. Oh, Bobby, this bhikkhuni over here wants to ask a question. Or wants to say anything, say something anyway. Let's see.
Ajahn, it is like this 6, like many other things, is sort of like a template that's useful in the practice of love. And this practice of love is something that we should all do, because it has kind of like a immediate benefit to ourselves and also to the world. And looking at it, there's something that strikes me about an emphasis on something being stable, because we have the movement there of public and private. We have giving, being generous. This is sort of this movement that we're supposed to kind of go further to join the dots for ourselves of how to stabilize these kind of things, so we can think about those areas in our lives of verbal kindness and mental kindness. And then from that stability, it's like then we can develop more higher and perfect the sila. And in that process there, our meditation becomes better, And as our meditation becomes better, this is kind of like the capacity for us to integrate the practice into our daily life. So when we're just setting like a new default setting in our personality structure, so then as we do that, it seems like this is quite beneficial, because then we become a bit aware of the purposive consciousness, that purpose, like our purpose, I'm doing this so I can end suffering and get out of samsara, becomes a bit more available to us, and we can choose correctly, for our own benefit. And this is like a practice, not academic, not theoretical, and it's something that we know if we do that, if there's no quarrel within our little group, our family, etc., there is no quarrel in the world. And therefore, what happens is that you are, it's like you're no longer sort of susceptible to behaving poorly to others and to the conditions, what the world you're experiencing. But you're actually using the Dhamma to fulfill your human potential, to mature to the most of a human being, and then you take kind of an approach of how the world experiences you. Not like you're experiencing the world, like, can I be nice and kind with the world? So it's a very beautiful thing to do in the kind of process to getting happy and peaceful.
Okay, thank you. Good. Yeah. Great. Anyone else want to add some words of wisdom? Have some more?
Yeah, Ajahn.
Yeah.
Usually kind people in daily life and work gets bullied, taken advantage of, and all this.
Yeah. No, you have to be wise, kind and wise at the same time. Yeah. And this is what you do with me, Bobby. You take advantage of me here. When I come here, you take the schedule. No, I'm being naughty. It's not, for me, it's not advantage. To me, it's just, okay, if there is a demand for this, then I come and do it. So it depends. You should be kind when you are coming from your own volition. You want to be kind. I want to be kind. I'm going to be kind. If you are doing it because someone is pushing you, then you shouldn't do it. You should say no. So the moment you feel someone is taking advantage, it's no longer kindness. At that moment, you're doing it because of you are afraid, or because you think they will think badly about you, or something like that. Yeah. So at that moment, you don't do it anymore. You do it only if it's coming from you and coming from real kindness, because you want to be kind. So you have to always be motivated in the right way. So don't allow people to take advantage of you. That's not what kindness is about. You're just becoming a puppet in someone else's pulling the strings, and you are kind of saying yes sir, yes ma'am, and being bossed around in that way. So you have to be not to be afraid of other people's opinions. If you are afraid of other people's opinions, they can manipulate you. Yeah, they will say, then they will take advantage of you, because they will know that they can manipulate you. If you're not afraid of other people's opinions, they can't manipulate you anymore. There's nothing they can do. Yeah, and you will just shrug your shoulders. If you don't like me, that's your problem, not mine. Yeah, and that's kind of a nice way of thinking. Because ultimately there was always going to be people in the world who don't like you, because there are so many varieties of people, and that's okay. They don't have to like you. What matters the most is that you like yourself. If you like yourself, this is one of the reasons why you do the metta to oneself. You actually like yourself, you're happy with yourself, you feel good in your own skin. And that means that other people, they can do what they want, it doesn't matter. The people who always seek praise from others, always seek other people's affirmation, they're very vulnerable. And it's not a good way of being in the world. You want to have that independence within yourself. So build up. That independence actually comes from building up the Noble Eightfold Path. That's where independence comes from. And ultimately, you will no longer care what other people do. And if you feel that they're taking advantage of you, you just stop, you stop doing things for them or whatever. So be wise about being kind. Be kind in a way. Be kind to those people who are lower down the hierarchy, because they can't take advantage of you. Be kind to those people, to the cleaner, to your maid. Be kind to your children. Be kind to those people who have no power over you. Then it's pure, because they can never actually control you. If you're kind to your boss, then it might be it's different, right? It's not the same kind of thing. So understand where to be kind is very important. Thank you, Bobby. That's a good question.